Good to see everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for Exploring AI Enhanced Assessment with Dr. Collin Brooks. My name is Audra Walters, and I am the Senior Manager of Healthy Schools for Shape America. And it has been my privilege to work with the Measurement and Evaluation Special Interest Group to bring you this presentation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelsey.
Hi, thank you, Audra. My name is Kelsey McIntyre, and I'm really glad that everybody is able to join. Just to let you know that this webinar is put on by or organized by the Measurement and Evaluation Special Interest Group for Shape America. We will be having some events in Cleveland, which we're excited about. We also are open to discussing any issues with measurement evaluation that you may be interested in. And then, of course, we're always interested in new members. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Collin Brooks.
All right. Good to see everyone. It's good to see some friends in here, see some students as well. I appreciate you all being here, everyone. So I'm excited to talk to you about artificial intelligence, AI, and exploring how this can work within assessment. So during the presentation, Dr. McIntyre will be helping with the chat. So feel free to ask questions in the chat. Feel free to you're in the Zoom, so you can talk. All right. I don't have any issues with you, speaking up and talking as well. And if you have any questions and so forth, because yeah, I'd love to be able to cater this towards the individuals that are in here. So while I'm getting ready and set up, why don't you post something in the chat related to what you know about AI. What do you think you know, and what do you know about AI and how you think you can use it in physical education? So we will start with that. And while you're doing that, I'm gonna get ready to share my presentation here. All right, thanks for jumping in and starting to share things. And okay, I'll let you continue to share those things as I hop in here. Okay, so everyone, can you see my presentation? Okay, I got some thumbs up. That's great. All right, so now let's just hop in here and we're going to begin talking about exploring AI enhanced assessment for health and physical education. All right, so what I'm going to do over the next 55 or so minutes here is we're going to discuss the following topics here. So what is AI, just like we're kind of doing right now, how it can be used in health and physical education, what tools are available to use, this thing called prompt engineering. All right. And then how can AI be used to improve assessment for health and physical education? That's going to be the main topic. But everything related to using technology or learning a new tool, right? We have to learn the different steps that are related to how we can potentially do this. All right. So I'm going to hop in here and we should have, there we go. So here's the format, everyone. So I've got some slides I'm going to share with you. I've got some demonstrations here of actually using the tool and also discussion. So I encourage you to, if you are interested, and many of you I know have already downloaded some of these tools potentially. So I encourage you to kind of tinker with them as I'm going through here and become familiar with those tools. Dr. McIntyre, if you wouldn't mind while I present, if you could share the link to that Google document that's entitled Prompts of Everyone. So Kelsey is going to share a link to a document that will be helpful. So these are the different prompts that I'm going to share with you. And we're going to go through. And if you don't know what a prompt is, that's okay. We'll get there. But I just want you to have this document. At the base of this document as well will be some additional resources that we talk about during the presentation. All right. So here's the suggested tools. We have ChatGPT, which is the most common tool that potentially you've heard of at this point. We have a tool that is called Anthrotopic, all right, or Anthrotopic, I think is how you pronounce it. That's who it's by, and I'll get into more about that. And then this tool called Perplexity. Okay, so we will get into those as we go through here. So, all right. I asked, and part of this too is, as we go through this presentation, some of this presentation was made by artificial intelligence too, just to kind of demonstrate some of the features and how artificial intelligence can work and benefit you. All right. So using AI. All right. So what is artificial intelligence? All right. So artificial intelligence refers to the development of computer systems and software that can perform tasks typically requiring human intelligence, such as problem solving, learning, and decision making. AI systems use what we call algorithms and data to mimic human cognitive functions and make autonomous data-driven decisions. That's a lot. All right. So that was ChatGPT's answer. Basically, what you can think of AI is it can do a variety of different tasks to help you in a variety of different ways as a teacher. And we're going to dive into that. Specifically here, we're going to talk about a specific type of artificial intelligence. Now, this is the one that you will potentially become most familiar with. It's called a large language model, okay? So a large language model is a type of artificial intelligence system designed to understand and generate human-like text by processing and generating natural language. Some examples include ChatGPT. So this uses deep learning techniques and vast data sets to comprehend and generate written or spoken language. So pretty much a large language model scrapes the internet and gathers all tons and tons and tons of text and information, places it in a database, and uses all of that to guess the answer to what you're prompting it. So that's kind of what a large language model can do. An interesting thing about a large language model also is it improves. So AI language models learn from the data it processes and improves their performance over time. All right. So that is what a large language model is. So at this point, we have a little bit of a background in what AI is, large language models. So now let's talk about what we call possible use cases. So a use case would be, okay, so you just gave us some definitions and potentially made things more complicated than they need to be by giving you those definitions. But what can it do for you? All right, as a physical education teacher, as a health teacher. All right, so first and foremost, it can help you with curriculum design. All right, can help you with some assessment, which we're talking about tonight. Instructional activity design. All right, that would be related to lesson planning. Collaborate, understand physical education concepts. Can help you to be creative. All right, can help you write those pesky emails that we have to write every day. It can help you with any type of potential program policy development at your school, advocacy statements, and also an interesting thing that it can potentially offer you is this idea of opposing views. So say that you have potentially an important conversation to have, and you might have some people that oppose what you're about to say. So asking a large language model like ChatGPT for some opposing views to your argument would be very helpful to you in your preparation for those conversations and so forth. So there's tons and tons of a variety of different things that you can use. a large language model like ChatGPT for, but those are some that could potentially help you as a health and physical educator. All right. So now let's get more specifically in, like moving down kind of like hourglass. So what types of assessment can AI create? Well, basically any, to be honest. So possibilities are pretty endless about what it could create for you. Is kind of a matter of how you ask it and what you're asking it, and so forth. So we're going to give some specific examples of that here shortly. All right. So holistic rubrics is an example. Analytical rubrics. We're going to make an analytical rubric together here shortly. Skill assessment rubric checklist, student portfolios, observation assessments. Some things on here that aren't listed, student journals, other, just if you can think of it, it can potentially make it for you. But you need to more so collaborate with AI, and I'll get into that too. All right, so we think about personalized assessment. All right, so this is a tricky thing for physical education and health teachers because typically, if you're, let's say, at the elementary level and you have 600 students, assessment in itself is very challenging, and personalizing assessment individually can be very challenging as well, right? So something that this tool could potentially help you with is personalizing assessment for every student. So some ways to do that could be describe specific student needs or interests. When I say describe that, what I mean by that is you would tell the what we call the chatbot or ChatGPT it's some things about your student. So I'm not advocating for you to tell them personal information or give student names or anything such as that, but some things about who they are in your class, maybe some things they need help with maybe skill development, maybe some things that they're having challenges with related to behavior or whatever. You give them that information, and then based upon that, you can create custom assessments based on each student, and so forth. So there was a specific question someone had about that, so I wanted to make sure to mention that. All right, and as we go through these examples, when you see that, you're like, well, how do I do that? That's the most important part, all right, the practical part, and that's what we're going to spend most of our time on. All right, so we're going to get to that here shortly. Okay, so choosing the right AI language model. All right, so as mentioned, there are multiple AI language models. All right, so the most common one, like I've referred to several times, ChatGPT is really common, and the one that you've heard of the most. There's other ones that we're going to talk about tonight. There's one called Claude AI, which some of you may have access to, and that's where I'm going to be spending most of my time. I really like this tool. There is Google Bard, which is from Google. And then there are several others. Okay, so whatever language model you choose might be determinant upon a couple of things. So down the pipe and in the future, so Microsoft, which has made a partnership with OpenAI, which produces ChatGPT, all right, is integrating ChatGPT within Microsoft. It's called Microsoft Copilot. So if you are a Microsoft user, or if your district is a Microsoft district, right? So you will have eventually what we call Microsoft Copilot, where you will have access to a chatbot like ChatGPT, where it'll be integrated into Word, Excel, be integrated into your email, all of these different places. If you are a Google school, the same thing is going to happen with Google Bard. They haven't really mentioned the name of this Google Suite, AI system that will be in there, at least not to my knowledge. So it'll be very similar. So it'll be integrated into our daily life. So it might be dependent upon that as well. All right. So there are different features to different AI language models, and some might perk your interest today. So we're going to talk about that. So sorry if you can't read this title up here, but it says the importance of prompt engineering. All right, so we're going to get to that topic here in just a minute. All right, so what I'm going to do right now, all right, is I'm going to attempt to share. Everyone can still see. Sorry, my screen's there we go. Okay, so now up here, I have several tabs that we're going to kind of go through and talk about here. All right, so before we talk about prompt engineering, all right, I wanted to show you some of these tools really quickly. So first and foremost, we have ChatGPT. All right, so all of these tools that I'm going to show you here are all what we call freemium accounts. So a freemium account would be that you can have free access to it and you can do probably everything that you need within the free features at this point. There are paid versions of these different AI language models. So if you look up here, if this is ChatGPT, we see ChatGPT 3.5, and then we see this ChatGPT 4. So you can upgrade and you can do more with it. But starting off, this might be where you want to start. So this is what we call a chatbot. So in here, you can type, all right, and start chatting with the large language model. All right, so it will, when you say hi, it'll ask you how you can assist and so forth. So this is again ChatGPT. All right, so this is a pretty great language model and can help you with a lot of different tasks. And I'll show you some prompts that you can use with it here shortly. All right, so if you're looking, and you may have heard this or you may not have, but there's a couple things that are a little bit concerning to some people. All right, so those include, okay, where does this information come from? All right, how do I know it's like a legitimate resource? How do I know what it's telling me is truthful? All right, and those are valid concerns, and I think we should all have that. Just like if you were to go on social media and look at a physical education idea, and you have the expertise to identify whether an idea is good or is not good, right? So same thing with this. So we'll talk about expertise and your expertise and how AI does not replace that here shortly, but that's really important here. But if you're interested in a tool, all right, that can help you to understand where it's getting its information, then I recommend Perplexity. That's this tool right here. All right, so on this particular prompt Google sheet here that I've shared with you, I have this prompt that I'm going to just give you an example here. All right, so the prompt is, can you provide peer-reviewed research related to cooperative learning in physical education? So say I'm doing a cooperative learning unit, all right? So I asked that question here in Perplexity, all right? So Perplexity is powered by the same individuals that make ChatGPT, all right? So I ask it this prompt, all right? So it's loading, okay. So you can ask it a variety of questions. So this is just an example here. So it right here is providing me with a variety of research articles that if I were to click on here, then it would take me to the peer-reviewed journal. All right. So while that's loading, I'll just come back here. You can ask it so many different questions. You could say, can you help me plan this unit? And it'll give you some suggestions on how to plan a cooperative learning unit. In addition to that, it will give you the resources or the references from it. So then you can come to it and you can see where this information came from, which is really helpful and to all those within K-12 and also higher ed and preparing future physical education students. All right, so Perplexity is a great tool and I definitely recommend it. It's one of my favorites, one of the most useful ones as far as using it in a variety of ways, whether that be for me writing peer-reviewed journals articles, or whether that be doing a variety of different things, preparing for my classes and so forth. So great tool. So Kelsey, is there any questions so far? Are we good to go?
Not at this point.
Perfect, thank you. All right. So this right here, and we're going to use this tool pretty much exclusively here while I show you some things here is my favorite right now, and it's called Claude AI. All right. So this tool is really cool because this large language model allows you to ask questions, but you can also attach documents. All right. So you can attach a variety of documents. And when you attach a document to a conversation, it kind of gives it a superpower in a sense, right? So you have a large language model then. In addition to that, you also have documents. For example, here in a couple minutes, I'm going to upload the Shape America National Standards and to Claude 2 here, and it's going to power my conversation with it and help guide it as we plan some assessments. All right. So with that here, I'm going to hop back in my presentation. All right. So the importance of what we call prompt engineering. Okay. So this is, in a sense, almost like learning a new way to communicate. And it's really important. So if you were to ask a really general question to a knowledgeable person, they might not be able to provide you with more than a general answer back. So you can think of providing AI with a general answer with a similar outcome, right? So if we can provide a large language model like ChatGPT with a good prompt, then we will have a good, what we call output, okay? So for example, and we'll get into it in a minute, I've got some examples, but to generate high quality responses that align with users' goals, it is essential to design specific and precise prompts that communicate the intended objectives, all right? So effective responses prompts can help ensure the AI language model generates the desired response with effective language, all right? So it's all about how we phrase things and what we want to ask. So, all right. Before I show you some example prompts, I just want to reiterate this. I mentioned this earlier that artificial intelligence does not replace human expertise. All right. So if you were, there's a lot of, I think almost all practicing teachers in here right now. All right. So if you did not have your expertise that you have and you asked ChatGPT a certain question, let's say we were talking about cooperative learning earlier, and it gave you an answer, you wouldn't be able to determine whether that answer was right or wrong without doing more research. But in addition to that, if you were to ask it a question, let's say, hey, can you help me design a learning activity based upon whatever, blank, 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 and whatever it spits out, you know, it could come out like before in the past on occasion. If I'm not specific enough, it will include maybe an elimination game. And because of your expertise in the area of health and physical education, you can decipher whether you need to refine what it's saying or whether it's good to go. So there's no way that AI will ever replace what you do for your students. All right. So this is like having what we consider a really great collaborator. All right. So we want to make AI our collaborator. Those that teach at the elementary level, I can relate to being in my office by myself and not having another person to bounce ideas off of always, right? There you go. So make AI your collaborator. All right. It's like having a really smart colleague that can work with you, but you're always the final word. All right. You have the expertise and so forth. So keep that in mind as we go through this. Okay. So now let's get into these prompts. All right. So designing a good first prompt. All right. So here we go. This is on your prompt resource as well. So first and foremost, whenever you start talking to a large language model like Claude, like we're going to do in a second, Claude 2, you need to help it assume some type of identity. All right. So when it assumes an identity, all right, then everything that comes after that, it's accessing based upon being that expert. So I ask AI this question here. I need you to pretend you are a physical education content expert. You are a master teacher and have showed advanced pedagogical knowledge and pedagogical content knowledge, expertise in physical education. All right. So we're gonna hop out here. All right, and I'm gonna copy and paste that in a minute. So but before I do that, I'm gonna stop sharing for a quick moment here. While I'm doing this, is there any questions from anybody so far?
I have a question for clarification. So could you briefly just explain the difference between Claude and Claude 2?
Yeah, so whenever you hear like Claude or Claude 2 or ChatGPT 3, ChatGPT 3.5, that's just like an update. Think about your phone and the operating system. So that's just an update from the operating system itself. Does that make sense, everyone? Other things? Okay, I'm going to reshare my screen. I just needed to find a document here. Okay. All right. We're back and everyone can see my screen, right? Okay, thanks. So, all right. So basically when you come here to Claude, this is how we get started. So I'm signed in. So you'll need to sign in. You can share your Google account or whatever you'd like. All right, create a login. All right. Remember, this is free, all right, unless you pay for a subscription. So I clicked to upload a document, all right, and what I've attached right here is a document that a lot of us are obviously very familiar with. This is the Shape America grade level outcomes, all right. So now that that is attached, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push start chat. Now, all right, it's working. So basically what this does is a couple great things. So say you have a PDF, maybe you have a research article, or you have a very long PDF. All right, Claude 2 can summarize it for you. Okay. All right. It can give you and pinpoint the important parts if you prompt it to do so. All right. So what Claude 2 is doing right now is it is summarizing, all right, the grade level outcomes document. So now that this is on there, all right. So what I'm going to do, and I referred to this earlier, here's our prompts. Okay. So I'm going to just copy and paste this document, okay, or this prompt, excuse me. I'm going to go back to Claude. All right, so now I'm going to post this here. So asking it to pretend that it is a physical education content expert, all right? So it'll just take a moment here, and depending upon the time of day, the the platforms like ChatGPT or Claude 2, they can run really fast, like you saw Perplexity doing a moment ago, or potentially here like Claude 2. It's not like super slow. That took about 15 seconds, right? It can go a little slower. Okay. So now what it's doing is it's saying, thank you for the context, and you can read this. I'll just read the first part up here. So as a physical education expert and master teacher, I am happy to provide my insight on grade level outcomes for K-12 physical education. All right, so now it's giving further thoughts about the document. All right, so now using the large language model, I have the Shape America grade level outcomes to help guide the content expert that I guess I've created here. All right. So now that it's assumed this identity as an expert in physical education, so now I'm going to give it another prompt. All right. So here, I'm just going to work off this document. These are in my slides too, but I think this might be a little easier right here. And for the sake of time here we go. So here is the second prompt, everyone. Okay. It says, I am teaching a unit on cooperative learning and physical education at the beginning of the school year for 5th grade students. I plan to use a backward design methodology to devise the unit. Can you help me write one learning objective based on the psychomotor, physical skill domain in physical education, one for the cognitive objective in physical education, and one for the affective domain in physical education? Please ensure these objectives are specific and can be easily measured. All right, so this is a longer prompt and it's very specific. All right, and I wrote physical skill for psychomotor because at one point when I was doing this, it came up with a different answer that was outside of physical education, and that seemed to kind of correct it. So you will sometimes have to tweak things on occasion. Okay, so I'm going through these prompts to show you, at this point, this is all very novel, right? So basically what we're looking at is what could potentially best practices look like if I'm a physical educator or health teacher using AI? How should I do this? How should I set this up? And we know that when we plan, one of the best ways that is common to us is this idea of backward design. All right. So that's the method I'm using, but I'm just using Claude 2 to help me with that. So I'm going to go ahead now. All right. And I'm going to put this prompt in. Okay. All right. So as it's doing that, I'll come back to that in just a moment. Okay. So it's writing my objectives right now. So as part of backwards design, we know the next step to backwards design would be to then think about our assessments. All right. So I am asking it now, based upon the objectives, based upon the standards, these different things. I'm asking it now to create an analytical rubric. All right. In table format on the affected domain's measurable criteria. Okay. All right. So I've asked it to put, really emphasizing table format here. I can delete that off of here. Okay. So table format, one of the great features of AI language models and how it gives you information is tables. I recommend when you want information and you want it to be straightforward, I recommend that you consider doing it this way. All right. Okay. So I'm going to hop right back in Claude. Before we get to the assessment one, let's take a look here, everybody. All right. And you can help me be the judge of this. So these are one of the things as content experts, right, we need to do is review the different objectives. Okay. So these are all supposed to be related to cooperative learning. Okay. By the end of the unit, students will be able to demonstrate mature patterns of locomotor skills, running, jumping, hopping, and manipulative skills, throwing, catching, kicking, while participating cooperatively in small group practice tasks and games with minimal teacher prompting. Okay, so I think there's a lot of different things that could be really helpful to us. I think that it has a lot of different psychomotor objectives in there. So maybe what we could do is refine that a little bit. For the sake of time, I won't do that, but you could say, okay, can you break down the objective of maybe jumping? All right. So you could choose some of those and have, and refine it. But it's definitely pretty useful. I would say this is a useful tool to help us to get on the right track of our planning. Okay. So look at cognitive. By the end of the unit, students will be able to identify and explain 3 cooperative learning strategies. This is a little bit more specific. I like it. Assigning roles, positive feedback, problem solving that can be used during physical education activities and measured by a written or verbal quiz. Okay, that's pretty good. So maybe saving you some time here. By the end of the unit, students will be able to recognize the positive social interactions and benefits gained from practicing cooperatively in physical activities and measured by a written self reflection or class discussion. All right, so what I'd like to do is a demonstration. I know I have that prompt waiting for you here, and we're going to focus on the affective domain. All right, so what I want to do now is just make sure that these are aligned with the Shape America grade level outcomes. So I'm going to ask it a question about that. So I'm going to, 1 second here. Okay. So as we would, need to make sure that we check our work. Okay. So let's see what it does. All right. So I'm asking it to look what grade level outcome the effective domain aligns with. I may need to rephrase this too.
Colin, when you have a moment, we have one question.
Go for it. You can go ahead and answer it, or go ahead and ask it.
All right. So Bob asked, in response to the difference between different levels of the language models, is it that some of them are connected to the internet and some are not, correct?
That's a good question, Bob. Glad you're here, man. So I think you're referring to ChatGPT, which is when it first came out, ChatGPT 3 and 3.5 did not have a connection to the large language model, did not have a connection to the current state of the internet. I think it stopped in 2021. At this point, they have, I believe, updated that, Bob. And it is, you can ask it more current questions. You should be able to, that's my understanding. But sometimes, yes, a large language model will pull from a amount of time, a certain amount, to up to a certain year, and then that information won't be available. But so you can always check that, and using a tool like Perplexity can help solve that. And help you understand where you're pulling those resources with. If you upgrade to like a ChatGPT 4 to, there's a lot of advanced tools that can help pull more current stuff as well if that didn't work. Okay. So everyone, if we can take a look here. So please share your grade level outcome, or please share the grade level outcome that the effective domain aligns with. What I should have asked would be, can you share the grade level outcome that you've aligned with the effective domain assessment? But I think it did it anyway here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to just pull this number here, okay? So specifically connects to standard 5. Yes, that's correct. I know that, right? You know that. Outcome S5, E4, grade 5 describes the positive social interactions that come when engaged with others in physical activity. That's great. It quoted the document supposedly here. So just for the sake of this is what I recommend you do whenever you pull something from like a language model. All right, so I'm going to go to find. Okay, so now I'm in the Shape America grade level outcome document. All right, so if we look here, it's not, and I'm not sure if that's this. So I did this the other day and it pulled it. So I'll come back to that. So now what that would cause me to do, I'm just going to go, maybe I can try this. We're searching. Perfect. There it is. Okay. So it's the wrong find function. All right. So if we can look at, this is a good sign for a couple of reasons here. So if we look here, this is the elementary standards. We're in standard 5, and we can see that in addition to that, we are in grade 5. I asked it to pull, I told it this was a 5th grade cooperative learning unit. So now it's aligning 5th grade level outcomes. All right. So that's pretty cool. That's a really pretty exciting thing for how we can plan in the future, and how you can plan now is we can see that alignment, we can see that it's doing it, and you can check your work. All right, so I wanted to show that to you. So please feel free to continue to ask questions as I go through this, everyone. Okay, so now we're going to come back here, and this is what the prompt that I copied a while ago, but we're just now getting to it. All right, so I'm going to go back into Claude 2 here, and now I'm asking it, please create an analytical rubric in a table format based on the effective domain's measurable criteria. Okay. All right. So I'm going to read this one more time to just make sure it's in good shape. Table format. I'm going to say effective domain outcome. Okay. Just to make sure. All right. So it's going to pull that information and create an analytical rubric for me. And while it's doing that, all right, So I've mentioned this word refine a couple of times. All right. So whenever you create anything in with ChatGPT or Claude 2, whatever large language model you're using, I want you to remember that first, it's like a first draft, and then a second draft, and a third draft, and a fourth. We want to kind of refine it to what you think is best for your students, right? Take the time to do that and tweak it and so forth. And I'll give you some examples here in a minute about how I did that. So constantly thinking about how you can refine it. All right, so I'm going to copy this prompt here and I'm going to explain it to you in a moment, but we're going to go back in here. All right, so, okay, now here's, it gave it, so it's done what I've asked it to do, but not completely. All right, so this will happen on occasion, right? So it did not create the table like I asked, so I'm going to ask it again. All right, and we'll see if it will do that. As I said, please, it's just a habit. All right. So let's see, maybe it'll do it now because I asked nicely as well. All right. So while it's working on that, what I will do right here, all right, we're going to hop back in here and I'm going to get into the presentation here for just a moment. So, all right, I'm going to show you, I asked the same question to ChatGPT, okay? And this is the rubric that ChatGPT created, all right? When I went through the same process with ChatGPT. All right, so this is the first draft, all right? So active participation, we'll get into that in a moment. Respect for peers, ideas and efforts. So again, this is an analytical rubric, right? So it's very specific and it takes lots of time. That's why having a tool like ChatGPT or Claude 2 is very helpful, because assessment takes time, and assessing students using rubrics, which gives us the best information for our students, oftentimes through like holistic or more, even more specifically analytical. ChatGPT can save us some time in these drafts and creating for us. So, okay, here's our 4 different levels of our analytical rubric. Consistently for respect for peers, ideas, and efforts. Consistently demonstrates respect for peers, ideas, and efforts, offering support and encouragement. That's a positive thing. Mostly demonstrates respect for peers. You can kind of read through this and see here. And then enjoyment and satisfaction down here is another criteria. Express a high level of enjoyment and satisfaction with cooperative learning experiences through enthusiastic verbal feedback. All right. So what I didn't like about this rubric is the active participation part, which it can be, when we think about participation, that's always a very challenging thing to assess, right? So I thought these 2 criteria down here did a great job of assessing that the outcome itself, the effective domain outcome. So I asked ChatGPT, I refined it and I asked it to eliminate that. So then it created this new rubric for me, which makes more sense. And then I don't have to worry about, assessing on active participation again, which can be a very challenging thing and sometimes subjective thing to measure. All right. So I'm going to hop back in here to Claude. Let's see. Okay. Table format. We're good. It's probably because I said, please. Good work. All right. So we see right here the different 4 levels here. Let's see what it came up with. And you notice, okay, we've got different language models. All right. And we have different rubrics. All right. So identifies positive social interactions, describes benefits of cooperative participation, makes personal connections. Okay. So those could all be aligned with the outcome that it created for us. All right. So what if you look at this here? All right. And what I'm seeing is that makes sense to me as the person that knows the field well. But what if you want to share this with your 5th grade students? All right. So I can say, please make this in language a could understand. Okay, so excuse my typos there. All right. Okay. So now it's going to recreate the rubric in developmentally appropriate language, or that's at least what I've asked it to do. Again, so at this point, um, I would look at it and see what it comes up with here after it gets done. I'll just give it another second here. What's
Colin,
up?
we do have another question if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
Another one from Bob. It's a good question. It says, what's the format that it produces? So can it be downloaded as an editable file or just a PDF?
Mm-hmm. Good question. So I will tell you it just depends on the system, but what I've found that works best is when I get a rubric like this, Bob. All right, you can ask for it in HTML and it can produce that in something, right? You can ask it in code, but I don't think there's some pretty rare times when we need that. What I do is I just simply copy it, all right, and when I get it to here, all right, I copy and paste and I put it in a Google document and I just edit it in a Google document and call it good from there. So that's the strategy that I've worked with. I think that they're starting to know that, people are using this more, and Google's pretty innovative. And because they want it to be so integrated in their different suite, you can open up like Google Docs specifically based upon that. So that's a way to do that, Bob, if you wanted to directly, but good question. All right. So let's see. You helped me be the judge. This is fifth grade language. Names positive ways students interact during cooperative games. Names 3 positive ways students interact cooperatively. Names 2 ways. Yeah, this is okay. Well, I would refine this probably some more, but you can get it to the point where it looks good. And what's interesting about a large language model is I asked this question to it the other day, and it was a perfect answer. All right. So just like in a sense, like a human being, like I'm not always going to give you the same exact answer that I'd give you yesterday on certain things. So you might run into that a little bit. I think it needs to be, again, I would tell it, but we're running out of time here. For the sake of time, I won't do it again. I would tell it to try again. So I didn't quite hit the mark on that one, but still, I think it got it a little bit better. All right. So this is the next prompt here. Please include an overview of the cooperative learning unit. So now I've created the assessment, all right, for this. Now the next step in backward design would to create like this unit, the overview of the unit. Okay, what specific instructional activities are covered? The unit should last 3 weeks. The fifth grade class comes twice a week, and every class lasts 30 minutes in duration. So students will have 6 class periods to work on this unit. All right, so whatever, you can add in class specific things for you and whatever your class, whatever the details of your class are. All right, so I'm going to put that in here. This might be the last, we'll see, this might be the last step we get into. I want to make sure that we get any last questions answered and so forth as we get through here. So as it's working right here, everyone, I want you to think about the things that we've covered, just kind of like the tip of the iceberg, right? With different topics related to assessment and AI. But think about what needs to be, if you were to get information or need information about planning in your district or where you're at, right? So some things that you could maybe use, obviously the Shape America grade level outcomes, you could use your state standards. All right. You could use whatever information your district gives you about, certain targets or so forth. Maybe your district asks you to do something that, makes us pull out our hair, like certain things that we can work around and be flexible with, but like things related to reading literacy or other things. I mean, it's important to incorporate reading literacy, but how do I do this? So you upload that document too, and they can help you with that. So the reason I love Claude 2 so much here is because you can upload up to 10 megabytes of words, which is equivalent to about 300,000 words in here. So you could upload essentially like a whole chapter of a book, lots of words. So keep that in mind. Okay. So it's given me a brief overview here. So introduce cooperative learning concepts and strategies, assigning roles, positive communication, problem solving, icebreaker activities to promote positive social interactions, cooperative local motor skill challenges. All right. So what I would do after looking at this, some follow-up questions. I would say, can you provide me with information about how this is aligned with our learning outcomes and assessment? All right. So, and it could do that. I would also say, can you please provide more depth and detail to every week? All right. So those are the kind of things, for example, if we look up here, okay, this is, and we'll get more into it. This is an overview, right? Okay. So if we look down here, again, this idea of backwards design. The next question, table format, please devise a unit plan for the instructional activities. Use the following information to guide the development of the unit plan. All right. Please include formative and summative assessment days using the effective analytical rubric. So I'm telling it to align the assessment with the unit plan. We could go on and on. The next step, obviously, would then be the lesson plans and so forth. And that would be, like, what icebreakers do you suggest? And then you could get into the details about planning and helping you plan in depth and details. So what you think AI can do, it can probably do it in a lot of cases. You have to work with it and work closely and carefully with it, but it can do all those things related to assessment. Now, I know I gave just one assessment example. You could take this and create, if we look back up at the top, as far as the psychomotor domain, and we could break that psychomotor domain objective down more, and it could create some checklist rubrics based upon that, breaking down the critical elements of the specific skills, like I think galloping or jogging was listed, and list that as well for you to create those assessments. So again, the idea about using AI in this manner is making sure that we're doing it kind of the right way, and it's based upon best practices, just like we would plan before, right? So we've included a resource from our national association, and then we combined that with the large language model, which has tons and tons of information. We turned the AI into a physical education expert. So all those different things add up to creating a good output from AI itself. So as we are kind of finishing up here, I'll hop back in here in my presentation. Kelsey, any questions so far while I'm doing this?
Yes, we do have a question from Ron.
Okay.
So
Ron?
He asked, did putting the national standards in to start, did this ensure this document was used for your prompts? And what would have happened if you would not have given that context?
So it probably would have given me pretty appropriate answers, Ron, but not as good and not as guided as using a document, kind of like as we would have, if we were to not use a document or, our standards to guide us, so the large language model has access already to all these different things, but giving it this specific document makes it very specific and ensures to me that it's doing everything that it can to create an aligned assessment. Hope that helps. Good question.
I do have one more question.
Mhm.
From Jenny. Did you share the presentation link itself?
No, I can do that. I'll add it to that Google document that you all have so you can look through this.
Thank you.
All right. So I just wanted to make sure that I covered everything. Okay, we had a couple more minutes and I'll stick around for a couple minutes afterwards. Okay. So we haven't really talked too much about this, but the limitations of an AI language model in physical education. Okay. I've mentioned number one quite a bit here. There's no substitute for human expertise. Okay. So that's important to remember. And using this as a way to help provide you with a tool to make you a better planner and maybe more efficient and effective and give you ideas and creativity is really powerful. All right. The idea of it replacing you, just again, will not happen, like, so keep that in mind. Keep in mind too, which I was trying to do as well, and I definitely recommend you do a critical evaluation of every output it gives you. Make sure that your standards are aligned, all of those things. However you want to do this, just make sure that you're doing your due diligence, to make sure that what it gives you is accurate and is going to be what's best for your students. Most importantly, your students. All right. And then sometimes another limitation, unrelated to those things, could be cost and accessibility to some people in this manner. So keep that in mind as well. All right. So other cautions, again, accuracy, pretty accurate. But at other times, there has been a couple times where I'm like, that's not, where it's recommended an activity, and that comes back, I can look at as me, like, I didn't give it a good enough prompt. All right. So I should have asked for something more specific, and that's where the refinement can come in. Bias. All right. This is an important point. I want to make sure that everyone's clear. So OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT and others have openly admitted, and they understand this, that their language models can be create cultural bias in AI. All right. So there's language and cultural bias in this because of where it's just a large language model. It's pulling this. This is something that they're always working on. So make sure, as you are looking at it critically, that critical evaluation point, you're keeping an eye on the bias that goes through there. Okay, what to avoid? Avoid using AI generated text as the sole basis for decision making. All right. So that's a must whenever you're using this tool. All right. So I made it through those slides here. So this right here is my email. If you are, where I'm definitely going to stick around here, and we can have some more conversations about this, but this is a way that you could contact me. So as we're going through this, again, I know it's just an hour. I could spend, a long time talking about more of that, more of this as well. So that's just kind of, again, the tip of the iceberg. So if you want to know more, please let me know, and I can help you out with that. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing here. All right, so what questions do we have, everyone?
Hi, Colin. This is Francina. I'm sorry, I was a little late. So, did you discuss the AI tool that also helps create slides?
I didn't, but I can talk to you about a couple of those if you would like right now. Um,
If you don't mind, if you have
yeah,
time.
yeah, of course. So I'm just going to give you a couple that I recommend. So tools like, well, in my slide deck that I'm using, Canva, at this point now is integrating AI within its system, which is really cool. Um, but if you're looking for a really high-powered AI slide creator, I would suggest that you look at Gamma AI. Um, it's a great example of a tool that you could use, where you can do this a couple separate ways. You can just say, give it a title, and it just will put some information out there, which is pretty, and not only that, give you pictures. It's really aesthetically pleasing. Or you can go into depth and detail about what you'd want the presentation to be, and it'll create that for you as well. So really powerful tool. So that's Gamma. And Kelsey just posted that link there. Again, so that is a freemium type of application where you can do a lot on it for free. But if you wanted to upgrade, you could do that as well. All right, everyone. Thanks again for attending. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me.
Thanks so much, Colin. Bye, everyone.